Yo, what's up? This is your boy Gary Ace Swaby, and you're now listening to the Turn Based, and this is our Final Fantasy 15 special. And this is exclusively for our Patreon supporters, so only they will get to hear this show in full. But we might release a little sample or something for the other people that want to get the gist of what it's all about. But for now, I'm here with Mr. Jake James Lugo. What's up, JJ?
What's going on, my boy Gary? Too long, son. It's been way too long. A whole bunch of stuff been happening.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know you've been doing lots of different things. You've had a busy few weeks, so good to
Yeah,
talk to you again.
definitely.
Yeah, and we're also here with Max Moller. What's up, Max?
Not much, man. Happy to be talking about Final Fantasy finally.
Oh yeah, I was definitely interested in getting your perspective on the game because I know that you recently just got into Final Fantasy and stuff, so it'd be cool to hear your thoughts on everything as well. So yeah, I mean, the game's been out for almost 2 weeks now, been about a week and a half or so. And I know that Max actually got it late, but he got it, he's been playing this week. I know JJ got it early and he did the review that's on the Koalition website right now. So go check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, we're basically just going to get into a general discussion of the game. I wrote down some questions and things that I want to cover. But, ultimately, I don't mind if this just branches off into different places and we just have a natural, organic discussion about the game. We're here for Final Fantasy, so let's just do this. So I want to start off by asking you guys, because, when I think of Final Fantasy and all the Final Fantasy games that I love and have enjoyed, they always have some kind of epic beginning. Like there's always some epic start to the game where there's some, there might be some epic action sequence or something, or just something that really stands out. Like Tidus at the start of Final Fantasy VII when he hops off the train and everything, or Lightning when she's kicking ass in the train, in the tram or whatever that thing was. Just stuff like that. There's always that iconic moment at the start of the game. So I want to ask you guys, do you feel like Final Fantasy 15 had that epic starting moment? What do you think, JJ?
To be honest with you, I don't think it has an epic start or a moment that's epic at the very beginning of it. It has its moment that kind of, makes it, unique. And it's like that one thing that you'll think of compared to the rest of the series, compared to all the other Final Fantasy games. And I think that's just the group. Just those different shots and the different selfies and stuff of the group. I mean, when the game starts out, you see Prompto, Noctis, Ignis, Gladiolus all together pushing the car because it's ran out of gas. Like they're already in medias res with their road trips. So I think that's the one piece of imagery that's really going to stick with everybody when they start out the game, or at least, come out from playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have mentioned, I heard a lot of people criticizing it actually, the moment where the game begins and you're pushing the car. For a lot of people, they might see that as lackluster compared to other beginnings and stuff. But that I believe that as we move into the future, that will be remembered as an iconic moment because this game is all about, the friendship of those four guys and, their journey and everything that they go through. Sorry. So, yeah, like I can see how that might be, a little iconic, that moment right there. But I feel like the game should have started with some high-end action sequences. Like it could have even started or given you a glimpse of what happens to the father, when the forces invade the city after Noctis has already left and stuff, and then that little battle happens. And maybe they could have started off with that and had like a really high-end action sequence just to bring everybody into the experience and be like, oh wow, this looks amazing and stuff like that. And then they could have cut to them pushing the car or something. But hey, who knows? Max, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say that don't forget that Regis and Noctis, they had their little father-son moment beforehand. And I think that part was actually pretty important. That would have been lost if it started on the city already being attacked, because if you remember later on at I believe it's the start of chapter 3, when they hear the news about what happened. Or no, that's the start of chapter 2. When they hear the news of what happened to King Regis into the city and everything, Noctis like gets really sad, and he's just like, why did he just say bye to me? He didn't like act like I was like anything bad was going to happen and everything. And I think that we would have lost that little family moment of Noctis being like, all right, Dad, whatever, I'm going to see you in a little bit. I'm just going to do this thing. It's not a big deal. And then King Regis like saying goodbye to his son for the very last time. You know what I mean?
You know something? Because of that, you know, and it has nothing to do with the game itself. I think it has everything to do with all the other stuff surrounding the game leading up to its release. I remember the exact moment that what you're talking about when they have that little moment. He's just saying goodbye to his son, and through our eyes, Noctis doesn't know what's about to go down. But if you watch the Kingsglaive movie, you know exactly what's going to happen. That's part of the problem with Final Fantasy 15 and why I feel like a lot of people are feeling that way. You have to watch the anime, the movie, and look at the other like multimedia stuff in order to kind of like, you know, get the setup of what the story is for Final Fantasy 15. Because if you just play the game alone, I don't think you get any of that. I think it comes off more as rather confusing than anything else. But also, I feel like because of that, it also spoils and ruins a lot of the moments which I feel could have been special, where there's certain characters where their motivations, you know, aren't really that clear and such, and then they go through certain transitions, that things that happen and stuff. And a lot of that is spoiled if you saw the Kingsglaive movie. And a lot of that is spoiled if you saw Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, you know, the anime. And it's just that kind of sucks, because I feel like if it was like totally done my way, I would have had the game come out first and have some of those stuff kind of like more fleshed out in the game, and then have everything else afterwards, after its initial release, kind of like give even more kind of like detail and even more kind of like well-rounded kind of like story about those particular things, specifically about King Regis and Noctis. Because I feel like just looking at the beginning of the game and going forward from there, you don't really get the emotional impact or how much emotional impact you should feel just on experiencing that, just the game alone. But again, if you watch the movie and stuff, you get a little bit more context, but I feel like something like that was a little bit ruined.
That's a good point. Yeah, Gary, did you watch Kingsglaive?
I haven't yet. No, I did get it with my deluxe edition of the game, but I was planning to, you know, watch that first before playing the game, because I know that it kind of leads into the game and everything.
That's what I did.
But I just,
I did.
I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I wanted to play the game so much. So, you know.
Now, you know what the worst part about that is? And I even said this when I talked about Kingsglaive, because I did an interview with the director of the film. Okay. And one of the things that I said afterwards, after that went live and I was talking about it on the co-op, was that it has the same type of feeling as like a Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. But now that the game's kind of come out, it kind of loses that for me, because you need to see Kingsglaive before you play the game, almost in a sense. But in reality, it should be the reverse way. And even then, I feel like it doesn't really completely fulfill its role like that. And just, again, all those moments are ruined, and all those different type of special moments that you should feel more than what you get out of it. You know what I mean? It's just, it really sucks for the game.
I completely agree with you, because I mean, like when it comes to Final Fantasy, that like these games are, you know, they're all about the story. The story is usually the main highlight of these games. Like some of the previous games, is evident that story is everything. But it's like this time around, it's like they've seen it as more of a vehicle to make money. And like they did the Kingsglaive movie, and they did the anime series and all this stuff building up to the game and everything, when these should have been things that you put out afterwards just to keep the fandom going. Like, and, you know, just for those people who are really actually interested in the story, they can use those as a means to, you know, understand more of the story that's told in the game. You know, so the game really should have been the main focus, and you know, they should have put all their efforts into making that story experience the you know, the primary one. And it's you know, it's unfortunate, but the story was actually one of my questions. Like, what do you guys actually think of it? I mean, we're at different parts of the game. You know, I'm almost halfway, not quite halfway. Max is, you know, chapter 3, I think it was, and JJ, you're right near the end. You're like chapter 14 or something. Yeah. So, but what do you guys actually think of the game itself so far in terms of the story? Like, how has it felt to you?
And again, I go back to the same point, is that the movie Kingsglaive and the anime and all the other multimedia kind of ruin it, and it kind of like brings it down, because I felt that this story for FF15 would have been a little bit better if none of that existed before the game came out. The whole story itself, and one of the driving forces that makes the story interesting is the relationship between Noctis and his crew, between Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto, Noctis himself, all four of those guys, and them going through their different experiences throughout the game is what really holds the story together. It's like the glue that kind of like holds everything together. With that being said, though, the story isn't the best. I don't think it's the best or even one of the really good Final Fantasy stories that we have in the series. I still think that there's some loopholes or plot holes here and there that are somewhat explained in the other multimedia, in both the movie and the anime and other stuff. And I think also there might be some stuff that might be explained in the King's Tale or the Knight's Tale, that separate little 8-bit mini game that's like a classic Final Fantasy title that's expansion upon everything else that you don't even get unless you pre-order it from GameStop, which is a whole other thing we're going to talk about later. But in terms of like overall looking at the entire story, because again, I'm at the end and such, there's a couple good high moments, and a lot of those high moments come from the more quieter times when you're just seeing the characters interact with each other. I mean, the action could be really cool. I think that there's certain moments where that they try to slow down and they try to do certain things that, kind of unsuccessful, but when they get things right in those smaller moments, they really get it right. There's a moment, okay, without spoiling any story details for you guys, there's a moment where you're just having a conversation with Prompto, and it's just like, it's real deep. You get into the mindset or get into the background of his character that you didn't get from watching the anime or any of the other stuff. And I thought stuff like that was really cool, because those are the types of things that I love and I remember when I play a Final Fantasy game, besides all the crazy, epic and off the wall moments that you get in like battles and stuff. Those are the moments where it's like, oh, I remember this character because I had an awesome moment with this character. I had an awesome moment with this character. Those are the cool stuff that make this story shine for what it is. But again, it's only could go so far. It's still decent for what it is. Not the best though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still at a point where I guess it's kind of building, but like, when I think of previous Final Fantasy games, like I'm always like just super invested from the get-go kind of thing, and I'm just not getting that spark from this game just yet. But like one of the things I think is, because they tried to do this big open world thing, and that's a thing in open world games, period, like with Fallout and stuff, like it's hard to really make the player feel super invested or super connected to the story when they kind of take it at their own pace, because in a game like Fallout, you can pretty much complete all the side quests and stuff in the game without even initiating the story and stuff like that. So maybe it's a side effect of it being more of an open world, so maybe that's why I'm kind of feeling that way right now. But what do you think, Max?
Yeah, actually I agree with that 100%, because I was going to say I feel more invested in the 4 than I do like any of the main story right now. And again, I'm pretty early on, like not a whole lot has happened. And I watched Kingsglaive, so I have a decent idea of where things are heading. But I like with the open world, I think you're right. I think they knew people were just going to go and kind of do their own thing. So I think they decided to put a lot of time into the 4 and investing themselves into the 4 instead of having the main story be the best thing ever. Because the 4 is what you're going to be spending the most time with. You're not thinking of the main story when you're doing like a chocobo race or something, or fishing. You're interacting with Noctis and Prompto and Gladiolus and everyone, and you're building your relationships with them. And I'm always thinking of them. Like I'm always just like, oh, what's Prompto going to think about this or something like that. And the main story just hasn't really hooked me yet. Like I'm excited to see where it goes, but I haven't really seen much of it yet.
But I think that's a problem. That's
Do you think that's a problem?
Because the thing is like, while I love those moments of stuff, those big moments in any Final Fantasy game, you could argue, some of the best ones that people love, 6, 7, the list goes on. Those big moments have to feel like the best thing ever when they do happen, or at least as close as that they're going to get to it. One of the biggest things about the story that I feel is kind of, to its detriment is that a lot of the character motivations for the people that are interacting with stuff going on in the main plot aren't really that clear. Or there's certain things that happen later on, way past where you guys are at in the game, that when they do happen, you're left scratching your head a little bit, and you feel like things are, at least in my case, I felt like things were moving a little bit too fast, and there wasn't enough buildup, or at least a good enough buildup for when stuff starts going down. And don't get me wrong, like there are moments in the game later on, like towards the part where I'm at, where it does feel epic. It does go into territory that's off the wall, like what you would expect from the series. But however, it doesn't always kind of like, drive it home. There isn't enough of it there, and it doesn't feel like the main plot is really the driving force there. And that to me, that's a big problem.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's why it's funny. Oh, sorry, Gary, go.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is my first first time really spending time with a Final Fantasy game. So it's kind of interesting because I don't have that whole like preconception of it being like, I knew they were kind of epic games, but I just don't have that whole like knowing each game has all those epic story moments and everything like that.
Yeah, because I'm just hoping that because it's hard for me to give a full-on overview when I'm barely halfway through. So I'm just hoping, if anything, even though the story might be a bit lacking in in the storytelling aspects, I'm hoping that by the end of the game, I can just look back at it and think, wow, that was a hell of a road journey with some cool characters. Like if I can just think that, then I guess that's fulfilling enough, just to know that you've spent all these time with these cool characters and done all these crazy and cool things within the game, even if the storytelling itself isn't one of the best in the Final Fantasy series. So
and you see, I don't feel like that right now, at least at this current moment. Again, I'm on the precipice of just completing it. But even after all the time I played with it, I played it more than probably like 15, 20 hours at least. I haven't looked at my game clock, but I played it for a very long time, and I don't feel like that. I felt like that when I played Final Fantasy X, even though a lot of people don't like that. I felt like that when I played Final Fantasy IV and a couple of the other games too. And this game has yet to really kind of give me that sort of feeling. I don't think there is one moment that really is kind of like, crazy enough that's going to stick with me for a while. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny I say that because earlier I was saying that, one of the moments that will stick with people is, the group of guys just being together, going on the different stuff. But like, there's always that one moment, like you had it in 7. Everybody remembers Final Fantasy 7, spoilers if you haven't played it, when a character dies, when Sephiroth kills somebody. Everybody remembers that. Everybody remembers the stupid laugh from Final Fantasy X. Everybody remembers the stuff that goes down with the Red Wings from Final Fantasy IV, people that have played those games. And this one doesn't really have that for me. Like, there wasn't a moment where I was like, damn, like that really took me back, and that's going to stick with me for a while.
But do you feel like maybe it's because, whereas those games are more about the journey of those particular characters, this game is more about your personal journey? Because like the thing I'm thinking is the fact that Prompto takes all those pictures and stuff, it's like you're creating your own memories within the game. So it's like your own little experience with these characters kind of thing. And maybe, it would be really cool if at the end of the game, you can just like, you have like an album and you can go through all your pictures and stuff like that. And just like, that would be really cool. Like just
I'm more than certain. I'm more than certain that that's going to be a thing. And that's why they're probably taking all these pictures. Like there's a reason why you're saving them. And I feel like I haven't looked at the credits and stuff, but I think like there's like going to be like a montage sequence towards the end credits, like with all the pictures. But
that's awesome.
The funny thing is that you get that kind of with all the other games, because there are things you remember and things that you experience that really hit you close to home or hit you on an emotional level with the stuff that happens. And this one's no different to an extent. I feel like with the photographs that Prompto is taking, they're really trying to drive that home, that this is the journey that you're going on, and that you're going to remember. You're going to keep little moments and keep little kind of memories of all the times when you did stuff. I get that. I totally understand that, but it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't have that sense where, again, I'm going to remember those moments right before hitting camp with the entire party and stuff after going through the big boss fight. Like if you guys remember the Deadeye boss fight from the episode to Sky demo and stuff, it's in the game. It's nowhere near the level of how it was when it was back in the demo, which I think is a detriment, which really sucks, because that was actually a cool sequence to kind of introduce everybody to the game and stuff. But I still, at some point, it was like the things like that were totally forgotten on me. Like it just was not, it didn't have the same weight for me.
I think the fact that we played the demo of that already, I think that kind of took away from it. Because
so many demos. Yeah. Remember, there's 2 demos, and plus all the times that it was shown at events, the press got access to the game for like the first like 5 or so hours of the game. Like there was a lot of.
It was 15, wasn't it?
No, they or actually no, was it 15?
Polygon did 15, I believe.
Okay,
if I'm not mistaken.
I'm wrong on that one. Yeah, so there was an overexposure of the game clearly some extent. And I think that because of that, we all thought maybe it was going to be meatier than what it actually is now. Now that we're playing it.
I mean, there's still been moments in there where I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty epic. Like when you have to I can't remember what you're retrieving exactly, but you have to sneak past that big ass giant bird and stuff like that. Like that was a really cool moment. And like the first couple of times you use your summon, like that's just incredible. Like just
I have not used the summons a lot in this game, to be totally honest with you, and I've wanted to in many different cases. And like, again, because of plot and because of other stuff, like the game prevents me from doing so, which I think sucks, because I was telling you guys earlier, at some point later on in the game, you can't go back to the open worlds. And I think that's when the game shifts from being a little bit more open, or more open than the last couple Final Fantasy entries, to becoming more linear. And that's what a lot of people seem to be having a problem with towards the later half.
Well, I really wish you had more time to experience the summons like in the open world, because it's incredible how you use those summons in the open world, because like it changes every time. Like every time you summon the Titan or whatever, like it looks different kind of thing based on where you are. So like it's really cool how they do that stuff. Like it's really epic, I think.
Definitely. And I think it's awesome. But again, the game doesn't allow you to really kind of relish in all of those things. You only get a short time when you in hindsight, in comparison to the rest of the game, you only get a short time to really experience all those different things. Like at this point in where I'm at in the game, I'm not even going to camps, to level up and such, based on story events. I'm going to different locations where I am sleeping and gaining the experience and stuff. But it's not like how it was pitched to us a while back, or even in the demos, where you're going to be going to camps, you're going to be finding trailers or hotels with your group like that, and gaining experience, getting bonuses and stuff. At some point that just stops, and it's really weird.
I suppose it must have been tough for you because you had to actually review the game, so you were kind of under pressure to see more of it before, you couldn't take your time and just enjoy the open world stuff, really, because you had to kind of get through it a little bit.
No, I think I took my time. It's just that when I decided to go on the main quest, like, the critical missions and quest missions that you have to do and stuff, that's when the game just changes up. I don't think it's really where I wasn't taking my time, because I did a bunch of side quests, to get parts for like the regalia, the car, to get like different weapons and stuff from Sid at Hammerhead, for all my different characters, or even just do the little small side quests, the hunting quests and things like that. I did a bunch of those. But then even though I still had all this list of things to do, at some point the game just stops, and then all of a sudden you're just full speed ahead with the narrative. And it was like, well, there isn't a point where I could just kind of stop and then go back to do all that stuff before I get to that final point. Because you know full well, Gary, like in most Final Fantasy games, especially the more modern ones, there's that point where the game tells you, like, hey, guess what? Once you reach this point, you are not going back. So you might want to go back and finish all these side quests. Like, exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That happens quite a bit in this one, but like it gives you like a false warning, kind of, because there's been a few parts where it's kind of said that like you can't go back or whatever, but you actually can.
Yeah, like the end of chapter 1.
Yeah,
it says that when you talk to Dino. I was just like, oh, and then that didn't happen at all.
Yeah, that's really confusing.
And to go back to what you were talking about, though, Gary, about the bird encounter when you have to go sneak past it and go pick up that rock and stuff, there are very few moments like that, which kind of sucks, because moments like that are awesome. Like, I think you only really have it 2 times, which is that and the Deadeye, the behemoth that's from the demo and such. There are no other moments that are like that.
There's been a few, because I've fought quite a few bosses, and like a lot of them are pretty epic when you first stumble upon the bosses and stuff. Like usually they're in those caves you go to, the dungeons and stuff like that. And there's some cool, little memorable moments in there throughout, like sprinkled throughout. But yeah, there's not as many as, those like Final Fantasy 7 or 10 and stuff. I agree with you there. But so let's shift gears a little bit. What do you guys actually think of the battle system? Now, Max, I'm going to go to you first, because you haven't played as many Final Fantasy games. So like, how does the battle system actually feel to you?
At first, I didn't really care for it much. I was like, oh god, this is what I'm gonna have to be doing for the next 60 hours. But once I got around the point where the tomb is, and you get the first weapon, like family or bloodline weapon, then I started really just kind of getting the hang of it, and I actually really like it now. I don't like the fact that magic kind of takes a backseat, and actually JJ talked about that in his review, and I agree with that 100%. But because I loved using magic in my short times with the Final Fantasy games, and like most RPGs with magic, that's what I use the most. And it's kind of weird to me that you only get like kind of 3 uses for every spell you make. And making spells is really freaking cool. Like I love doing that, but then you only get 3 uses, and I constantly have to go back and keep making it over and over again. And that just gets kind of old. So sometimes I'll just stick with the weapons. But I think it's really natural, and it's kind of like an evolution of The Witcher 3's combat, which isn't that good. Final Fantasy kind of took it and streamlined it a bit, but then added more features on top of it. And I really like that. Like, for example, just holding B and then using the stick to move around instead of constantly having to press right trigger or like block or anything. And then blocking, it gives you a notifier of when to block instead of having to figure out when you need to, because there's a whole bunch of enemies coming at you at once. And like, there's all these different kinds, and you wouldn't always know how to block it. Yeah. And then I really like using the different friend abilities, even though it kind of takes you out of the combat for a little bit, and it's kind of awkward sometimes. But I think it's really, really fun to use, and going through the different abilities. Like I love Gladios's the most, how he just pounds on people. Those are one of my favorite things to use in like any game, honestly.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, magic is a big one. Initially, I didn't mind it, but yeah, now I'm starting to be like, man, I wish this game had like, you know, like, because in the previous games you'd have a dedicated person for black magic or white magic or whatever. Like, it would be really cool if, like, you know, one person was dedicated to magic or healing or something. And you know, yeah, I kind of missed that element of it. But making the spells is really cool. But like you said, it could have been a bit more complex than it is. I think it's a bit, you know, basic that you have to mix the fire, thunder, and blizzard and stuff. But I literally thought that though about The Witcher. I think these guys were really inspired by The Witcher, because it really does kind of feel like that a little bit. But JJ, what do you think of the battle system?
Now, I've seen a lot of people divided on it. Now, for me, for my review, like Max mentioned, one of the big things that I thought was a huge detriment was that magic takes a backseat to everything. It takes everything, magic, items, and other stuff, and arguably even limits, which are just the team-up moves, take a backseat to basic attacks. Now, throughout my entire time that I played the game, I think I could say that most of the time when I get into battle, I'm just going to be mashing circle and doing different attacks, and then using my warp attack abilities from different points. Now, the game itself tries to encourage you to kind of like, you know, do a couple attacks and then try to, you know, fall back and then recover health and then go back into attacking and then let your boys take care of most of the stuff. But because of that, and because of where I'm at in the game, a lot of the times my teammates towards, you know, the later half of the game where I'm at, they end up getting killed off a little bit too quickly. For whatever reason. I don't know whether that's because the enemies or the bosses are a little bit over leveled. There's one point in one chapter 13 specifically, which we'll probably talk about when we get into some of the other controversial stuff with the game, that I feel is a little bit misbalanced or unbalanced, you know, in a lot of the way that it's designed and such. But throughout the entire time, I'm still mashing circle, you know, completely just in order to defeat an enemy and just do those different warp attacks. Now, one of the things I feel like they could have done to correct the whole issue with magic that I have was to make certain enemies a little bit much more susceptible to magic uses. Like you have the classic Final Fantasy enemies like the Flans that are rolling around and stuff. You can beat them down with your physical attacks and then be totally fine. But I feel like they should have made it like in classic Final Fantasy where you can't hardly do any damage whatsoever unless you use magic on them corresponding to the right element. That's their weakness. And more enemies could have used that, because I would have found myself making my partners or, you know, my party members or even myself use magic more often. One of the other problems I had with magic was that you could just basically use the main 3 spells, which are fire, ice, and thunder, fire, ice, and electricity. but you could also mix them to get better, more, complex spells like, death, tri-cast, some sort of like variations on healing spells as you're damaging enemies and stuff. That to me is a cornerstone of classic Final Fantasy games, or most Final Fantasy games, I should say. But that's almost lost because, again, everything's being so focused on physical attacks or just launching attacks at your opponent. It's a much more interesting approach, more tuned to Kingdom Hearts, because that's what you have in the Kingdom Hearts games, just mash X and you attack with your Keyblade and stuff, and occasionally you use magic. So it's very similar in that nature. But this is Final Fantasy, and I feel like that should have, taken a much more of kind of like the element, just bringing a little bit much more magic implemented into the mix. Now, as far as everything else, the way that you level up, the way that you, pretty much gain different abilities with your partners on the Ascendance grid, which is very similar to the Sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, almost to a T, with a few exceptions. I feel like some of those abilities, they take way too many AP ability points to level up to. Like, I'm towards the late half of the game, and I feel like I haven't even touched any of the like more stronger, powerful abilities, for one reason or another. Even with me getting a lot of EXP, I haven't gotten enough AP to unlock those abilities. I feel like some of those like abilities, or even in some sort of different way, they could have made it so that way as I level up, I gain those abilities automatically, and then maybe have stat boost or other type of like, secondary abilities that I could pick and choose from and such. But I feel like I'm still missing out on a lot of stuff, even though I'm late in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't mind it that much, because I know there's like those AP boosters that you can unlock that help you gain more AP, and then I guess it really just encourages you to do a lot more side quests ultimately to keep leveling and getting all the better abilities and stuff. But yeah, the battle system, I agree a lot with both of you. The magic could have definitely been improved for certain. But I mean, another gripe I have is the weapons and stuff, because I feel like a lot of the weapon vendors that I visit, they don't always have, exceptionally improved like gear basically that you can get. Like, it's all pretty standard stuff, and like if they have anything that's better, it's only by a small margin kind of thing. So like, there's not a vast majority of different weapons and stuff that you can get really. And having more side quests dedicated to, like, I know you have his special king's weapons and stuff that you can get, which is cool, but I feel like there should be a lot more quests dedicated to getting different types of equipment, because that's one of the things in old school Final Fantasy games too. Like, you do a lot of grinding to get better equipment and stuff, and you can unlock like really unique sets of weapons or armor for your characters. So I feel like they could have explored that a little bit more, especially with the friends and stuff, that Noctis's friends. Like, they should all have their own specific set of special weapons and armor that you can get for them. I feel like, I don't know if that comes into play later on, because obviously I'm still early in, but I feel like having more of a variety for that stuff would be cool.
Speaking of which, oh no, Max, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say that I that's a great point. I feel like I'm gonna be using the same weapons most of the game. I feel like the ones that I'm kind of using now, I'm mostly gonna stick with, or at least the weapon types. It's like, yeah, I feel like there's not gonna be a lot of variety, and I'm 14 hours in. Like, I'm only in chapter 3, but I'm still like kind of 14 hours in. Like, I've experienced some of it, and that just seems to, and I've accepted it.
Yeah. What was you gonna say, JJ?
I was gonna jump off that same point. Most of the weapons you're going to use throughout the entirety of the game. And I think also, to the game's fault, that whenever you get some of those weapons that are like the blood lineage weapons that Noctis could get, they drain your health. And the game kind of tells you, but doesn't really make it a point to make you understand, like, you're going to lose a lot of health by using these weapons and stuff. And it kind of sucks because it discourages you from using new gear that you obtain. Because, like you said, Gary, most of the weapons that you find at vendors and stuff, unless you find them out in the world, like in random locations and stuff, they're not going to be that very good. They're not going to really be helpful whatsoever, especially towards the later half or the later ends of the game and some of the other quests. Speaking of quests, I don't know how many side quests that you guys did and stuff, but I know every once in a while they'll have like those party member specific quests, and I did 2 of them. And I didn't get one for Ignis for whatever reason, but I did one for Prompto and I did one for Gladiolus. And those I feel like the most interesting because they kind of come out of nowhere and there's no real way to kind of like trigger them unless something random happens, or at least from my understanding. Again, the game isn't really clear about it whatsoever. But I feel like there should have been more of that at some different point or another.
I think those are initiated based on the different camps that you sleep at. I think some of those are initiated based on, you know, the different camps in different areas that you sleep at.
Yeah, but the game never kind of like really encourages you or tells you that. Like, I know that when I did Prompto's like little side quests where I don't know if you guys did, but he does this quest where you have to take pictures with him about a certain thing, and it just showed up randomly. It was like what, maybe 10 hours into the not 10 hours. Like it was a huge chunk into the game before I couldn't go back to the open world. And the same thing with Gladiolus's quest. It just showed up randomly when I went back to a location that I had been to way earlier. At some point, I was just going there randomly, and then all of a sudden, this just popped up. And I didn't see any rhyme or reason why those were occurring, because even though I enjoyed them, I think they're cool, but I wanted to know why. So that way I could go get Ignis's quest and have, do the complete set.
Yeah, I think those are pretty much just based on, where you camp and stuff like that. Like there's different trigger spots, different camps that trigger them and stuff like that.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, that was actually going to be the next topic. So the open world. So firstly, like, how do you guys feel about the car? Because me personally, I really love the car because for one thing, I really love Final Fantasy music. Like I even like when I'm working and stuff, I listen to Final Fantasy music because it's just relaxing. It helps you think and stuff. So like the fact that you can collect the different soundtracks and play them in the car, that's pretty cool. And then, as whoever's driving, whether you're driving or Ignis is driving, the characters are kind of doing their own little thing, and there's different animations going on and stuff like that. So I like that. And I know me and Max, we spoke about this a lot, about the car elements and stuff. So Max, what's your thoughts on the car and the whole driving?
I really like it. I don't use it as much as I did when I first started off, just because I have all these quests and I'm trying to get, back and forth and everything. But whenever I get to a new area or something, I really like to just sit in the car and just drive around and play all the different tracks. I really like the tracks too. And I just play through or go through and kind of explore the area, get all the parking spots and everything before really delving into doing all the quests. And I really enjoy those little moments and like having everyone talk and everything. I haven't had this, but my brother said he was playing through and he's much further than I am. And he said there was a part where like one of them farts and they all comment on it. And I was just kind of like, really? That's kind of surprising. So I feel like just a lot of little moments like that only happen in the car. And I kind of like that kind of stuff. But sometimes I wish it was a bit faster. I don't know if that's like, I know you can upgrade the car. Like I've upgraded it to where there's less gas, or it uses less gas and everything. But if it goes faster too, maybe later on, that'd be cool. But sometimes that does get a bit annoying to me. It goes a bit slow. But other than that, I really like it. I don't really have any problems with it aside from that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be really cool if that was an upgrade you can get. I know there's going to be like different service upgrades and stuff you can get, because I know at some point you can get a flying car or something. So I'm hoping that you can make a lot of those different improvements to it to make it go faster and stuff like that. Basically pimp your ride. And I really like that you can change the decals and all that stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of cool car moments. Even I don't want no spoilers, but there's a part where you have a different character with you, and just the way they interact in the car and stuff, that's pretty cool as well. But JJ, what's your thoughts on the car?
Like you guys said, the bickering between them while they're driving when you're going from location to location is what makes those moments. That's the real reason why you want to get into the car, and you don't want to drive the car. You want Ignis to drive the car most of the time, because that's when most of that happens. And you get those those weird, funny moments that just occur randomly. And especially if you go to different locations you've never been to, because there's different dialogue between them. There is a few instances where it's a little bit repetitive for whatever reason. And I agree with Max that sometimes the car ride there to a specific point can take a little while. And that only really happens when you're going to a place you've never been to before. like if you're going towards a camp or if you're going towards a particular like pit stop or something for a quest, that could get annoying. What I do like though is that after you go to a specific location, whether you drive there or if you pass by it and you have to fast travel over there, you have the ability to fast travel to do so, which costs you like 10 gil or whatnot, and just uses up gas from the car. So by the time you get there, you could just refill and you're good to go. But that's a nice little touch to allow you to kind of like get past through everything. So it's not an overly extended adventure every time you have to travel like that. I love the extra music. I know you could find more inside the game. I know that there's like different spots where you could actually find extra music for the Regalia, which is cool. I love the idea and the options to customize the car. I know that there's certain stuff you could add to it that allow it to go faster, allows it to do different things or have other properties when you're traveling and stuff, but really it's all cosmetic for the most part. And that's cool. That's a nice little kind of like, attention to detail. I never really customized the car except for a few times because I was more focused on other events that were going on. And plus I like the look of the Regalia. I think the Regalia is a really sleek looking car for what it is. But overall, I think it's pretty cool. Now, I will say though, driving it's not as open-ended and it's not as kind of like free as a lot of other games. Like you're not going to be driving it the same way that you do in Grand Theft Auto. This is a much more controlled, even though you have like options where to drive it to with the Regalia. I don't know whether that was intentional or maybe that was just, again, to keep in line with the plot or something, but I think that it's fine for what it is, because when you're playing this game, you're not playing it to go chaotic with the car or chaotic with just whatever's going on. You want it to stay within the context of the story, and I think that was a good decision on their part.
Yeah, I didn't want this to be like a GTA, because I remember like I did some crazy stuff in like GTA games, like jumping off of cliffs and like stuff like that with cars and stuff. Like I don't want it to be like that. So I'm fine with the fact that you have to stick within the road and you can't go off road and stuff like that.
And
that's completely fine.
And you know something? I like how you could just hold the acceleration and not have to turn. When you're just going straight for a long time, you can just hold the acceleration and not have to turn, and then Noctis turns automatically and stuff. It would have been even better if you had Ignis driving or whatnot, but if you had Noctis driving, just tap the button once and then just put it like on cruise or some sort of mode where you could just go to your destination on its own while Noctis is driving. That would have been fine. That would have been like one little nitpick I had.
Yeah, because it's actually really relaxing as well. Like when you're driving long distance.
And the views are gorgeous. The views are absolutely gorgeous. Like again, you could share any one of those like snapshots on Twitter or other social media, and people are like, yo, that's like gorgeous. That's really cool to look at. And it is, especially like when you get towards the later half of the game where you start going to different locations and you see some of the monuments that are there while you're driving in the car, like off over cliffs or in great distances far away. That's when I feel like the game shines at its best.
Yeah, and I like driving past like the crystals and all the different viewpoints and stuff that you see throughout the game. That's really cool. And one thing I really like as well is the fact that because at first it's annoying because Ignis doesn't want to drive at night and stuff, but eventually, like after a while, you like after you kind of gain his trust a little bit, and like he starts to drive at night and stuff, like because I guess he feels more safe with you and like stuff like that. So that's pretty cool that eventually he doesn't mind driving at nighttime. I thought that was a cool touch. And yeah, let's be real. The best thing about the car is Cindy, like, because you can never get enough of Cindy.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
that character model is awesome.
It's unreal. From my experience, it's the only model anything like that at all. Like every other character is just like normally dressed.
Not really. When you get later on,
from what I've seen, yeah.
When you get later on, there's other designs and stuff. I feel like there was a little bit of a backlash from people that were kind of upset when the game came out, or even when they first revealed her design, and everybody thought that was this game's version of Sid when it's not. There is a Sid in the game, and it's funny enough. There's multiple Sids in the game that they actually talk about at some point, which again, I'm not going to spoil where specifically, but like when you hear them talk about it, if you're a Final Fantasy fan and like of the games and stuff, that's a little bit meta at some point. But I remember like some people talking about Cindy's design, and it wasn't as bad as when they first revealed it, but I didn't really see the big deal and stuff. She just works on the Regalia. Funny enough, you don't really get to see her as much towards later in the game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, that's another topic as well. Because at first I was thinking like, there's really not that many female characters in this game. But now where I'm at, I just met a few more, kind of thing.
There's a lot more. Trust me.
That's good.
Yeah,
There's a lot more, and some again, not spoiling story details, but there's some really intricate and important ones that you come across.
yeah. Like I just yeah. Well, I'm not gonna say too much, but yeah, that's cool. So going back to the open world, like what are your thoughts on the actual side activities and the world itself and the different things that you can do, from fishing to hunting to chocobos and all that different cool stuff? And do you feel like there's enough of it, and is it actually fun to explore the world? Like what do you think about it, Max?
I really, so far right now, I still really like where I'm at. I really like fishing. I like exploring the world and doing all of the side quests and everything. But I feel like later on, if like every chapter is just these big open world areas, I feel like that could get a bit tedious unless they really start to change up what kind of activities I'm doing. Because for the most part, it is still like going to a spot and killing someone or grabbing something and then heading back to it. The world, I don't know how they would have fixed this with the way they did the game, but the world, I find running through it can be a bit boring, as it is beautiful and I love looking through it all, but as I'm constantly going back and forth through the same areas, I kind of get bored, and the chocobos do help that, which is a nice touch there. But there isn't a whole lot of, like, if you're just running around, there isn't a whole lot to do aside from combat. If you have quests to do and everything, like you have places to go, then it's fine. But if you're just trying to explore, you're probably not going to find much, at least from my experience so far. But other than that, I think it's really pretty, and I think they took advantage of it otherwise.
What about you, JJ? You're muted.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was trying to unmute it. It's just a reason there. But the overworld looks nice. I will say that Final Fantasy 15 is a gorgeous game. Anybody says that it's a game that doesn't look good is lying to themselves. It's a very good and pretty looking game. Now, as far as like stuff to do in it, I will admit some of the side quests are a little bit menial and are kind of stupid. There's one side quest I think early on in the game where you have to go get a fish for a cat, but you need a specific fish, and the game is kind of unclear at first. So when you go fishing and you finally catch something, try to bring it back to it, it won't complete the quest. It's like, okay, come on now, like
it needs to be cooked.
I don't think the cat needs to be that picky over the type of fish and stuff. That's a little bit of OD right there, but still, there's other quests that do feel a little bit like that. Now, admittedly so, at the same time, there's some that are really good. I love some of the character-specific side quests. Like, the funniest quest in Final Fantasy 15 is when you're with Gladiolus. I don't know if you guys did this, but there's one with Gladiolus where you have to go make ramen, and it is the funniest. Like, the way what happens with it when it initiates is like the funniest thing that happens. Like, Gladiolus just looks at you with the most hardest, stern look. He's like, listen, we need to stop what you're doing right now, and we have to go do this. And it's just, in context, it's hilarious. Now, it doesn't have that big of a payoff, admittedly so, but just like while you're going through it, it's just you can't help but laugh. So there are moments and there are times that are like that. But everything else, as far as like outside of the main quest, the main storyline, I think it's okay. It could have been handled a little bit better as far as like not only the locations of some side quests, as far as like how spread apart they are and like how far you have to travel to do certain things, as well as also some of the activities you have to do in order to complete them and stuff. Like running for what is that? I forgot the guy's name. Where you have to actually go pick up that crystal from that giant bird at one point. I forgot his name at the moment.
Gino?
Where you have to find. Yeah, Gino. Okay, so when you're doing the different stone runs for Gino and stuff, those could get a little bit annoying over time. I'm not gonna lie, like as far as like the repetitiveness of it and such. And there's other quest lines that are similar. But overall, I still think that the overworld is still great. I still think that, going around the different areas with your entire group is still cool when you're doing that. I just wish that you didn't lose out on it at some point in the game to kind of go pursue the main storyline.
Yeah. One thing with me is I wish there was like more unique things you could do at nighttime, because like I know it's more dangerous for you to travel at nighttime. And one of my personal things was because there's always that one big dude with the giant sword and stuff at nighttime. And one of my milestones was finally being able to fight him. Like, because that's like I get a kick out of grinding in RPGs. Like, I love having to build up my characters and build towards something or build towards beating something. And that was kind of like my little like moment where I was like, yes, I finally managed to fight one of these and beat them. But yeah, besides that though, at nighttime, it's like I feel like there should be more specific things that you can do at nighttime to really create that feeling of high risk of being, you know, around or awake at nighttime and exploring at nighttime and stuff. I feel like they kind of could have created an atmosphere where you can get maybe some more rare items or weapons or something by exploring at nighttime or going to a certain place at nighttime or just engaging in different nighttime activities, but at the risk of, you know, those overpowered enemies and stuff. Because really, when it's nighttime, it's like the only thing to really do is to just go sleep, like, you know, and it's kind of hard. Like if you, because there might be a time where you don't even want to go to sleep or something, and there's not really much else you can do, so you just go to sleep just because, like, otherwise, what else are you gonna do? So I really wish there was like more nighttime activities, nighttime specific activities, personally.
Yeah, there's only like the hunts to do, really.
Yeah,
At night.
yeah, those are literally the only things.
Which also, the issue there, I have an issue with that too. I forgot about why can you only have one hunt at a time? Like, I think that's kind of frustrating sometimes because some of the ones, especially where I am right now, where you find the chocobos, there's a hunt like it's like 0.28 miles away or something, and you go do that, and it's at nighttime, and then you have to run back, turn it in, and then there's another one like right there. I was just like, really? Like, come on, I have to go all the like. It's not that far, but it's still just kind of like, that's kind of annoying. And it's nice that you could turn them in to anyone, but I don't know. I kind of wish that you could have multiple at once. I don't really see a benefit to only allowing you to do one at a time.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but thanks for telling me that because I didn't even know you can turn them into anyone. So thanks.
Yeah,
for telling
you can
me.
turn them into any person who gives you hunts, to any tipper, I think they're called.
Tipster, yeah.
Yeah, tipster.
Yeah. Thanks for that knowledge. I'm gonna
I got you.
take advantage of that now. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the exploration of the game. To be honest, like I'm still really enjoying it. I'm not at the point I'm at now. I'm not in any rush to continue with the story, and I just kind of want to beat as many side quests as I can at the current moment, and I'm fine with that. I'm still very happy with the exploration part. It's just nighttime is really annoying for me sometimes, but yeah, I really like it. Even fishing, even though like sometimes I'm a bit frustrated with fishing because like I don't know that like I've got this one quest where I have to catch this specific fish, but I can't find the perfect bait for it, and the quest doesn't tell me like which bait I have to use to get it and stuff. So that's really annoying because I really want to finish that quest and stuff. But yeah, the fishing is cool.
Yeah, I like the fishing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you've kind of got to force yourself to do because like whenever you turn in and you see the other guys level up, like your fishing is always like leveling up slower because it depends on how much you actually fish. So it's one of those things you got to force yourself to do more, and you have to actually find a place where you can fish. But when you actually do it, it's pretty cool. So that's good. Any more points that you want to bring up on the exploration stuff?
Not that I can think
you or
of.
JJ?
No, I think we pretty much covered most of it. I mean, again, we covered quests, we covered the car, we covered locations. I think we're pretty good on it.
Okay, so yeah, so let's get to what JJ wants to talk about. So there's been a lot of criticism on chapter 13. And earlier this week, they actually announced that there was going to be a future update that would kind of fix some of the issues of chapter 13. Now, of course, myself and Max, we're nowhere near chapter 13 yet, but JJ has actually played through that portion of the game. So JJ, what are your thoughts on this without spoiling it for everyone? What are your thoughts on this particular topic?
Okay, so this is going to be a little tough not to spoil because a couple of the big problems with Chapter 13 do deal with spoilers. So if I do spoil anything, spoiler alert in
Just
advance,
be
warning.
super vague, like, you know.
I'm gonna try to be, yeah. So basically, the thing is about Chapter 13 is that it's a chapter where everything about it is so disconnected from the rest of the game. One of the big reasons is that some stuff, it like deals with a lot of stealth. If you remember some of the stealth sections that they showed in the demos and stuff here and there, as well as also in a couple other like previews that were out on the internet at the time. Stealth isn't really that much stealth in this game, except for like this one time where it actually is really kind of almost hounded into you, but it totally contradicts and it's like at the opposite end of everything else that you experience up to that point while playing Final Fantasy 15. And in addition to that, because the update is not just going to fix Chapter 13, it's actually going to fix a lot of other things, apparently, bug stuff, as well as also it's going to add cutscenes and story content to the game, which rubs people the wrong way, you know, in a lot of cases. I think it kind of sucks that we're technically playing an incomplete version of Final Fantasy 15 because that the thing is like on day one, we got a patch that added cutscenes from the Kingsglaive movie, which I even said it in my review, I felt like those were shoehorned in. Like they're cutscenes that are just playing music. There's no dialogue. There's no sound effects. There's nothing like that. It's just the scene from the movie with like an overture to it. And you're supposed to understand what's going on because if you did not see Kingsglaive whatsoever, you would not know the significance of that. And I don't think even the game, like before and after those scenes, really kind of, you know, explains what was going on. Like you get an idea like, oh, the Insomnia got attacked and all this other stuff and crazy things like that. But like you never understand the minutia, the specifics of it, or really kind of get the emotional weight behind what was going on. And that kind of sucks. And if we're going to get more stuff, then maybe that will be hopefully a little bit better than that in the new update. I'm all down for that, but it still sucks that we're getting significant updates like this. I mean, it's cool that they're improving the game. I think that that's lost on a lot of people. A lot of people that were really criticizing Square Enix or really attacking Square Enix on social media were doing it in a mean-spirited way and weren't really understanding what they're doing. I understand that this is a good thing and that they're improving Final Fantasy 15, but it still kind of sucks that this needs to be addressed after launch. And that's a shame. But back to Chapter 13. The game mechanics for a lot of stuff, again, where you're going and doing more stealth stuff in the context of what's happening in the story, it, again, really ruins the experience for a lot of people because it just is so an offbeat of what you've experienced up to that point that you would swear that it's a completely different scenario or a completely different game at that point. Now, in addition to that, there's also some mechanical things with Chapter 13 that aren't that great because of what you're doing, you know, gameplay-wise. I feel that some of the enemies are a little bit imbalanced, you know, as far as like they're over-leveled compared to you. I know at some point when I got to a certain section that the enemies, I think, were almost 10 levels above me. And I was like, wait a second, like that doesn't make any sense. Like there's no way I missed out on so much experience that I have to hit a wall and grind at this point. Like there's always an element of grinding in a Final Fantasy game that's, you know, here and there. And it's happened with some of the classics of the series. But I didn't think like it would just come out of left field so much like that. Or that it would be in a moment where there's certain things that are happening that, again, that I don't want to spoil and stuff where I kind of just have to deal with it. And that kind of sucks for me as a player because at that point I was enjoying everything for what it was up to that point. But now I really have to kind of like stop what I was doing or really stop what I was really getting into to kind of deal with this. And that's what I feel is a lot of the big problems with people that they have with Chapter 13. Now, admittedly, they said they're adjusting it. Now, hopefully that means that they adjust some of the levels on the enemies. They adjust like some of the nuanced things about the mission or the quest itself or that chapter and make it a little bit easier and not as bad as what it is right now. So again, it's a little bit hard to kind of get into specifics, you know, of why without spoiling that stuff because again, you guys haven't played it yet. But once you get to it, especially if you get to it before the update comes out for this game, then you will totally understand where I'm coming from.
Oh, we will, because they said that update isn't coming for a long time, so we'll get to it. But like, would you say the issues with that chapter is more to do with the story, or is it simply just the gameplay choices that they take in that chapter?
I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of both. Story specific stuff, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but like once you get to that point, there are things leading up to it where you're like, why did they go in this direction, or why did some of these things happen, or I don't understand why some of these things are happening specifically. But also it goes hand in hand with the gameplay elements, because certain things start to happen, then other things start to open up to you, or that you gain access, or you come into contact with certain stuff. And while at the same time you're gaining stuff, it shuts you down from other things as well. Again, without getting into specifics, but that really sucks because it's taking a lot of stuff away from you that is more so than it's giving back to you, or it's giving you stuff. It doesn't feel as much as an advancement as much as a brick wall that you hit at that chapter.
All right. So yeah, I mean, like that's obviously very frowned upon that a developer would go back and actually patch story elements of a game and stuff. So would you say this is like comparable to like the ending situation of Mass Effect? Like, is it that bad, do you think?
No, and I think that the stuff with Mass Effect specifically was because everybody was dissatisfied with the way that that game concluded, and the way that, you know, the payoff basically from having invested so much into it. And I think a lot of that was very mean-spirited and unjustified to some extent. So it's definitely not in the same vein, or not in the same ball fields here. With this one, I feel like they had stuff where they decided to go with, and that could have been because they were rushing it out, or because, again, maybe certain things that were going on behind the scenes just didn't allow them to really kind of like, you know, adjust things like this, and they kind of just released it as is. I think it's great that they're adjusting it to an extent. I think that it's good that they're going to hopefully make it maybe a little bit easier, if not a little bit much more streamlined, because Final Fantasy 15 is a very streamlined game in the series. And that particular point of the game didn't feel like it was. It just, again, it's like hitting a brick wall. Again, I can't get into the specifics of it, but it's like hitting a brick wall.
Would you say that like a vast majority of the story in that chapter needs to be fixed, or is it just like minor stuff?
I didn't like how certain things happened, or how certain things, you know, transpired, or how they unfold. And I think there's only so much you can do to that, because it is the story. I think a lot more of the adjustments are going to be done with gameplay, more so than anything else, which is a good thing, which is fine. Now, maybe they add other scenes in there that might, you know, be helpful, because there is story in there that's not only told through cutscenes, but also told through stuff that you find. Like, I don't know if, like, again, like in some of the spots where you guys are at in the game, there's like different things you could read up on that give you little details about the world, or little details about the lore of Final Fantasy 15. And there's stuff like that that is significant, apparently, to the plot once you get to it. And once you see it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I think that more so.
Like, do you have to find it, or
it's optional? Yes, it's optional. Okay, but I think that once you're seeing some of the stuff play out and things like that, or you're starting to see certain characters, you're gonna want to look for stuff like that to kind of like get a little bit more clarification, or maybe even get a little bit much more expanded explanations on it. But again, I feel like more it's going to be gameplay focused on what they're going to adjust on there, which I think is good, but you can only go so far with it.
Okay. Max, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Not really. It just, that kind of sucks that it's optional, because I'm the type of person who would look for those things anyways, even if they weren't that important to the story, like just little like tidbits here and there. But the fact that they're that important and they're optional, like, there are going to be people who don't realize that, you know, and they're going to be like, what the hell's going on? From what it sounds like, at least.
Yeah, I'm just sad because, like, whenever it comes to Final Fantasy, people never seem to like the 13. Like,
yeah,
you know, chapter 13, 13. Yeah,
that's
so
pretty
that's a
funny.
sad thing. But yeah, was there any final thoughts on that specifically, JJ, before move on?
I can't wait to see your reaction specifically to when you get to it. I mean, I'm curious to see what you guys think about it when you finally play through it. But I know you specifically, knowing how you are, Gary, I think you're going to be really upset. You're going to be like, what the hell, once you get to it, because it was the exact same way that I felt when I got there. And it's just, you know, I understood what was happening in the context of the story, but that was one of the very few times in the game, in my experience, where I was not having as much fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds like we need a spoiler cast after.
I mean, I want to spoil it so bad to kind of clarify, because I know it's coming off very vague, probably to the listeners that are listening to this now, and to you guys as well. But like, once you see it, you'll totally understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely will have a spoiler discussion at some point, like once we've all beat the game and stuff. So that needs to happen. But yeah, I'm really intrigued now to see what actually happens.
Me too.
But, yeah. So Max, I have a question specifically for you before I go back to JJ after. But so as somebody who's new to the series, like because I'm gonna ask JJ, how he ranks it and stuff after, but like you're new to the series, so you haven't played as many as myself and JJ. But like being new to the series, what's like your overall take on Final Fantasy, and how does it make you feel about the series? Does it encourage you to go back and play more of the games, or do you feel like you just want to play the new games in particular? Like, how do you feel about the series after?
All right. So from what I know, this game is pretty out there compared to all of the other ones. Like, it's pretty different compared to all of them, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Like,
yeah.
Okay. So knowing that going in has made me like, I'm loving the game. Like, the game is great to me. I'm really enjoying it. And knowing that it's very different to me has me not wanting to, like, I'm still obviously going to compare it to the other ones, and this does make me want to go back and play all of them, but it's kind of making me see it in a different light right now, and I don't know if that's going to change when I start the other ones as well, because I know their whole point with this thing was to almost, I don't want to say reboot the series, because I know that each game kind of it's its own contained story, so reboot probably wouldn't be the best word, but it makes me go, I want to go back and play them, keeping 15 in mind, that I kind of want to think about what made them want to change things up a lot with 15, I guess, while I'm playing the old ones. And I want to see how different mechanics evolved and how different systems evolved, or if just they threw a lot of those out with 15, or kind of what. I've always wanted to go back and play them, and playing 15 has just made me want to go back and play them more. But overall, I have a very positive impression of the series so far.
Okay. Which games have you played already?
I have played like 5 hours of 13 and 5 hours of 6. That's literally it.
Okay. What do you think of 13?
I actually didn't hate it. When I got it, I didn't know anything about what anyone thought of it. I was just like, oh, a Final Fantasy game, and it's on sale. I should finally play one of these. And then it ended up just being, I started playing other games, and I just didn't have time to like play it much, because that was before that was at like my old house, and our internet was really shit there, so I didn't even like get on the internet to see what people thought of it or anything. I had no clue about any of that, but I liked it, and I wanted to see where it kept going. And then 6 I really liked, but then I just haven't had time to play 6. That's it with 6, and I've been playing other games as well. But yeah.
Okay. So do you think you'll focus on beating 6, or will you jump to one of the other games?
That's the thing, because I have 6 right now, and if I have no like easy way of like starting at 1, then I'll probably play 6 first and then go from there, because I know most of them are on Steam, but I know those are like kind of shitty versions of them from what I've heard. Like 6 I need to mod so that it doesn't look all mobile, because it's like a port of the mobile version for some reason. So I'm going to be very careful about going about how I play each one. Like, I want to play them in their original forms as in the best way I can.
Yeah, I would definitely try 7 at some point, because I really want to know what you'll think of that game. 7 and 10, and then possibly 12 when it comes out. Yeah. But yeah, that's your decision. I'm just
Yeah, of course. Yeah, from what I've heard, 7 is like the end all be all of Final Fantasy. It's like the Final Fantasy game from what I've heard. But
yeah. Okay, so JJ, as someone who's had a lot of experience with the series, how would you rank Final Fantasy 15 in the series? And how do you compare it to the other games?
I mean, I think that's a very tough question right now, because I feel like we haven't seen the game's final form, because with all the updates that are coming out, obviously we still have the season pass stuff, which, is a whole nother beast that needs to be tackled at some point, over time. And I still think there's other things about the game that are still unfolding even after its release. Like, this is the most interesting, like, development wise, or at least, the stuff outside the game of the entire series. It's had an odyssey worth of like stories that about this thing that's gone through, but even way back when it was still known as Versus 13. But as far as like the quality of content right now that we've experienced right now with my review on the site and everything, I scored it an 86 out of 100. How do I feel it ranks up to the rest of them? I have to say, I think it's better than 13. I think as far as like the modern Final Fantasies are concerned, I feel like it's better than the entire 13 trilogy because it's a much more better, well-produced, well-designed game compared to everything within that trilogy. Is it better than some of the classics? Visuals aside, like we're not counting visuals, fidelity, or anything of the sort. Story-wise and gameplay-wise, and the hook of like you wanting to stay playing the game. I don't think it's as great as some of the classics. I still think that some of the earlier games, like 4, like 6, like 7, like 9, have better stories. I would say it's probably better narrative than maybe 10. And I love 10. You know how much I love 10, especially musically and stuff. Musically, this game stacks up pretty well. I think the music tracks, the overtures, the entire soundtrack, I think is pretty damn good. I think sometimes it could get a little bit confusing which ones are specifically for Final Fantasy 15 and not from one of the other mediums, that of the stuff surrounding Final Fantasy 15, like not a Kingsglaive or a Brotherhood soundtrack stuff, like specifically just the FF15 OST, I still think is pretty damn good. I love the battle themes. The boss battle theme, I think, is epic as hell. I love the slower, like, menu themes. I think it's awesome. Yoko Shinomura is the one that did the music of this. She did the music for Kingdom Hearts. She really went above and beyond with this soundtrack as far as, like, the stuff that she created. Now, apparently, she also had a hand in some of the other forms of media with Final Fantasy 15, both in Brotherhood and in Kingsglaive, which I think is kind of cool. It's a nice little nugget of info or trivia. But as far as just looking at the game, I think the soundtrack is awesome. But that's where I stand, really, as far as like how this game, matches up to everything else. I still think that there's still more to see to really before we give it its final judgment because, again, it's kind of still incomplete.
Yeah, I guess I see your point with that because with Final Fantasy, a lot of it is the after effect as well. So I guess you kind of need to have completed the game and some time has to pass for you to really think about it, I guess. But yeah, yeah, I'm having a hard time ranking it myself, to be honest. I haven't even like completely thought about it yet. And yeah, I think I need to play more. I think that's a question for the spoiler cast that we do, at some point, when we've all kind of beat the game and then we can kind of look back at it and look back at the entire series as a whole. So yeah, but I don't know about like because when you said it's better than 13, I was kind of conflicted on that. Like
I feel like that's the truth. I think it's better than 13. I think it's a much better produced game than 13 than the 13
like
saga.
in a lot of aspects it's better than the 13 series. I agree, but like I just have a personal attachment to that series. I really love it, and I feel like they made a lot of improvements on this, the sequels of 13. Like they've made a lot of gameplay improvements. I think it's just that the story kind of got worse progressively. But yeah, I don't know where I rank it. I need to really think about that, and I need to complete the game first. But we've talked a lot of negatives about Final Fantasy 15 this episode, and I'm quite surprised. So I feel like we need to kind of highlight some of the good points of the games. So I'm going to go around and you guys tell me what you actually really love about Final Fantasy 15, because there is a lot to like, even though we had to kind of point out some of the, the negatives of the game, because that's what we do. But I feel like there's a lot to like also. So JJ, what are some of the things that you really appreciate about Final Fantasy 15?
Like I mentioned earlier, I love the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is great. The original soundtrack for Final Fantasy 15. I love the visuals. I think it's a pretty looking game on the PlayStation 4. I'd be interested to see how this is going to look on a PlayStation 4 Pro. I know a couple friends of mine that are getting the Pro, or they have the Pro, that they're going to play this game on there, and I'm curious to see like what any differences whatsoever with it. I think it's supposed to have some differences between the two consoles and stuff, but for what it is now on a regular PlayStation 4 or on a Slim, looks gorgeous. I like the little moments of the game when you're together with your buddies, the bantering and the bickering between them. because you see their relationship, between all the guys together, as they go through different hardships and different story plot points. You see their relationship evolve and how they grow as a team. And I think that's pretty cool. You don't really get that as much from other Final Fantasy games. It's usually about everything happening around a specific character or a specific few characters, but never as a team, as a group. And going through different trials and tribulations together as a group like that. But with that being said, I still think it's still a great game that everybody should play at some point or another. It's the most streamlined game, I feel, out of the entire series. And if you're looking for an entry point into Final Fantasy, as a series overall, I still think this is a good solid choice, to kind of get an idea of what the series is like. Not the best of the series, but still one that I think everybody should play.
Yeah. And for me, like you just said, I really like that it's a game that can get people who aren't particularly Final Fantasy fans, into the series, kind of, because I remember back in the day, like, because I used to I think I was in like my early college years when I first got into Final Fantasy. College is a bit different over here. We start at different age, so I was like 16, 17. And I remember, like, when I told people I played Final Fantasy, I used to get like weird looks or something, like they didn't understand or they didn't know what the game was, or they thought it was a weird game or something like that. So I like now that we're at a place where people are actually wanting to try the game who never really had much experience with Final Fantasy before. So I appreciate the game for that, for getting new people invested in the series and what Final Fantasy is about. And it also doesn't entirely lose its identity of being a Final Fantasy game, because you still have the chocobos, the cactuar things, and you have all these different symbolisms of Final Fantasy, which is cool, because they maintain all that, they kept it all. I really like the feeling of being on, an epic journey with some cool characters and stuff. I like the visuals. The battle system is fun. I wouldn't say it's my favorite at all, but it's fun for what it is. So I appreciate it in that regard. And I like that it's open and you can do a lot of like exploration, and hunting is like one of my favorite things to do in Final Fantasy games. So hunting the different beasts and monsters and stuff, that's really cool. But yeah, story wise, it's a bit lacking, but I still appreciate the game for what it is so far. I'm loving it. And I like that, this game is enhanced with the PlayStation Pro. I actually can't wait until, because they mentioned it's coming to PC. I can't wait for that, because I'm going to buy it again for sure, just to see like how it looks, at its best and stuff. But yeah, Max, how about you? Would you appreciate Final Fantasy 15 for?
Let's see. Well, the menu music, I don't know what the menu music does, but there is something about that music that just, I love it. I absolutely love it. When you're in the menu for like Ascension, and when you're just working with everyone's gear and everything, there are a few songs in games that just have me listening to it all the time like that. Like when I'm in my room and I have to do something, but I'm playing the game, I just leave it there and just listen to the music and do it. It's brilliant. I really like that they included actually all of the music from the previous games. I find myself going and checking each new area I go into to try and buy the older tracks so that I can listen to them, because music is a big part of games to me. Like I love listening to the music and soundtracks and everything. Gary, like you said, how you listen to Final Fantasy when you're working and stuff, like I do that same thing with like all of the games that I play. So the music is top notch, and I absolutely love like all of it so far. I love, like most people in the game, I love all the little moments between the four. Like that's my favorite part. I hate missing what they say. Like I don't play games with subtitles anymore, but I turned on subtitles in this just because I don't want to miss what they say, because their interactions are hilarious. That's definitely my favorite part of the game, is just going through and listening to what everyone has to say about everything. And like I feel like I'm getting to know them, like I'm always thinking, I'm like, I wonder what like Gladiolus would have to say about this. And sometimes I get sad when they don't all comment on something, but like what are you going to do in regards to that? I do like the combat a lot. I don't think it's perfect. I think there are a lot of small changes they could have made here and there, but overall I like it. And for a game that I'm going to be investing probably 60 to 70 hours into, I think it's good enough that I won't get bored of it per se. I think the world is absolutely beautiful. They put a lot of effort into it. Like I said earlier, I wish the quests had a bit more variety so far, like the side quests, but I don't hate them. Like, I'm used to them. I still enjoy them, and I'm kind of at the meat of the game right now, and I'm constantly just wanting to play it. Like, I know a game is doing something right when I'm constantly thinking about it and just trying to find ways to fit it in here and there. Trying to think. There's nothing I really hate or like strongly dislike about the game so far. Like I said, I'm not too far into the story, but from what you guys have said so far, especially JJ, since he's much further in, that has me very intrigued and very cautious to keep going and see what it's all about. But I'm excited too. I'm mostly, my feelings can be summed up as excited to like really experience this game, because I feel like I'm getting into this whole new franchise with like Final Fantasy. Like, playing 15 is just the start for me. Like, I also have that looming over me. Like, it's funny because there's all these people who are like, they've played all the previous ones, you know, and now they're going into 15, whereas it's me, it's the complete opposite. It's interesting. It's an interesting way to go about things, but I'm ready for it and I'm excited.
Yeah, I can understand why you'd be excited, because you still have like some of the best Final Fantasy games to experience. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. But yeah, since you mentioned it, also the comments and the banter between the different characters, there's one funny thing I like about Prompto, because I don't know how it played out for you guys or if it has played out, but like there's been a few occasions where like we're randomly strolling or running or doing some sort of side quests, and he brings up Cindy and he's like, "Oh, do you think Cindy's taken?" and stuff like that.
Yeah, he does that a lot for me.
Yeah, and then there was actually a side quest that I had to do for Cindy, and she said something like, "Oh, I hope you guys don't mind me giving you all these different tasks or something." And Noctis is like, "Well, one of us would do anything for you." So so stuff like that is really cool.
See, that stuff's great. That's like my favorite part of this game, and out of any game in recent memory, honestly, is just that kind of banter between the characters. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it just like it makes any moment like interesting, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah,
and it makes you look forward to the slow stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that makes it feel real, like it's a real journey, like these are real characters and stuff. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, very positive.
That's all the talking points I really had. You guys got anything else in particular you wanted to bring up?
There's one thing I wanted to touch on that I thought was important, and I kind of brought it up right before we started recording. Some of the issues that have come up with the Ultimate Collector's Edition and some people getting their games, specifically, I don't know if it's from ordering them straight from Square Enix or getting them in like other locations like Amazon or GameStop and stuff. But I've had multiple reports or multiple people that I know personally come to me and tell me about how there was certain stuff in their Collector's Edition that was missing, that they just straight up just did not get. And like, you know, there was a whole bunch of errors and stuff with the Ultimate Collector's Editions. I've had one person come to me where they got the game, right? Or they bought the Ultimate Collector's Edition, and the whole set came with everything else except the game.
Oh,
wow.
Like, not even joking. Like, the box itself, like the actual box, that I think it's supposed to be a tin case that holds the game.
Yeah, the steel book.
No game disc inside, which kind of sucks when you think about it. The other thing, too, is also I had a friend of mine that got the same edition, and some of the DLC items that he was entitled to get, I forgot which ones they were specifically. It's like, I don't know if it was like weapons or like outfits and stuff, were not included in his collection at all. Like that, and it's supposed to be in there because that's what you're paying for. But also, even that, I think it's also of note that the King's Tale minigame or the King's Tale like side game, that's like that 8-bit rendition of a Final Fantasy title that's related to FF15, not included in the Ultimate Collector's Edition, which I don't understand why. You have to go specifically to GameStop to pre-order that. I mean, you have to pre-order from GameStop to specifically get that, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Is that available to purchase like on the...
No, it's not.
Okay.
It has to be eventually. I really hope so.
I would hope so.
I wanna try that.
To me, the Ultimate Collector's Edition, that's the most expensive edition of that game that you could buy from Square Enix themselves. Why isn't everything included in there? That's my big question. And why has it been so difficult for some people to get their additions, with everything that they were entitled to? Because it's not like it's where it's like a few people that's happened to. There's a number of people I've seen coming up with this. And I think that's significant. And not a lot of people seem to be talking about that because for one reason or another, it's just, that's weird to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that troubles me is just the whole fact that this has a season's pass. I can't say it. Yeah. Because that's something we're not used to in Final Fantasy, really. And that worries me a little bit, like, what they're going to actually include within that. Because I know that 13.2 and Lightning Returns had DLC and stuff, but it was mostly cosmetic stuff. And there was like one pretty cool boss battle that you could do in 13.2 with Lightning, which was really cool. I remember buying that. But yeah, like when it comes to DLC, like I just don't know how they're gonna handle it, and whether the season pass is gonna be worth it or not, or whether we're gonna be missing out by not getting the season pass.
So that's the thing. I was actually going to bring that up. So what the season pass is going to be, it's actually going to be like each side character, like Prompto and Ignis and Gladiolus, they're supposed to each get, like, each part of the DLC is supposed to be their own like story, like side story that kind of fleshes them out more with the season pass. And then the last one that comes out after all that is actually supposed to be a multiplayer add-on where each person can be one of the 4 characters, and there's supposed to be some like co-op mode. And I was actually going to ask you guys what you think of that, since this is the first time aside from the MMO where there's multiplayer at all, if I'm not mistaken, correct? In the franchise.
Well, here's the thing. Multiplayer, there's been the MMO games, Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14. So, I mean, if we're not going to count those, then yes, to an extent, this will be kind of like the first, or at least the one I can think of that's a main series Final Fantasy game that has multiplayer. I'm not too bent out of shape about it. I would like to have it. I think that maybe, something so significant, would have maybe been included in the game. But then I remember that I mostly play Final Fantasy games for the single player experience. I don't really play multiplayer like that. That was one of the reasons why I was turned off from the MMO games, besides them being MMOs like that. But as long as it's not mandatory where I'm going to get a huge significant chunk of experience or like, time playing the game in general, then I don't mind. Now, what I do mind though is the extra side quest stuff for Prompto, Gladiolus, and Ignis, like that. I think those are significant, and that kind of sucks. Those are behind the season pass, but I have no real context of like how big or how meaty those are going to be. If they're going to be exactly like the ones I just got recently in my game save file, then maybe not a lot lost, unless there's something significant that's like key plot stuff that I think we're all going to want to hear.
Yeah, it's really annoying because, like, this is a series where we're used to just getting everything, and now I guess because of the climate of gaming, it's like they strip things out to sell us, as extra content, and that kind of sucks. But the multiplayer thing, is that actually part of the season pass? Because I thought that was
supposed to be. I think they're selling it separately as well.
It is. It's part of the season pass. They're all being sold separately, but you get all that in the season pass.
Because I thought that was going to be like a free update they add on later, but I guess I'm wrong.
No.
I wish.
I think that with how they've handled patches and stuff, they should give us a freebie, to be honest with you. Because I feel like a lot of people, not us here, I don't think so, and certainly not myself, getting to that point and reviewed the game, I don't feel like I've been cheated out on, with how the game's released and what's in there already. But I know a lot of people out there do feel some sort of like, sense of being upset, with how everything turned out, how it's not really complete, or like there's still stuff of significance that's being added on with patches and stuff. Like, I think there's a group of people that aren't mean-spirited, that aren't just, saying that to say that on the internet, that do feel that way and haven't been in that position.
Yeah, like, I'm just, because it's annoying, because like, if you look at Final Fantasy VII, right, that really took off because people were super invested with the characters and the story itself, and that game felt complete. And then because it was so well received, they were able to create all this extra content, like your Crisis Cores, your Advent Children, and all the other stuff that's related to to Final Fantasy VII, there were several spin-off, mini games and stuff on handhelds related to that game. So I feel like if they just put the work in and made the core experience something that we could value and really enjoy and love, we would want all that extra content anyway. So I just hate that they kind of strip things out to for the purpose of selling it to you. Because if you just focus on making a great experience, then we'll want more anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what really annoys me with that whole thing.
You guys think you're gonna get the season pass? I guess.
Yeah, I will.
Not sure
I
yet.
will.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it because I've been burnt with season passes, and I've been clear about my stance on them in the past.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. I think that's the best. But that's the best approach for anybody right now at this point, especially if you felt one way or another about Final Fantasy 15. Just wait and see. Get the patches that they're gonna get now, and then once we get more details about each of the individual stories and like the other content and especially how the multiplayer mode is like that, just wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any other topics to bring up?
I'm good, I think.
As far as like anything else about Final Fantasy 15, again, I can't wait to do a spoiler cast with you guys to talk about it. Talk about specifics.
Yeah, I'm excited
when
for that.
you guys play a whole lot more and you get to that point, or when we really start talking about it and we have that turn-based on it, the spoiler cast, that's going to be more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely have to schedule that and get that going at some point. Yeah, I mean, the only other question I can think of asking you guys is, would you say this game is Game of the Year material? Granted, it came out, a bit late for the actual Game Awards show, but it came out 2016. So do you feel like it's Game of the Year material for this year?
Honest to God, and I'm probably gonna kick myself in the butt for this. No, and the reason why is because I think a lot of what makes this game special. I mean, it is good. I scored it an 86 out of 100, so I think it's a great game. But Game of the Year material, I feel like there was much more better games that came out in 2016 than this. I feel like, I mean, it'll certainly be talked about in a lot of Game of the Year contenders, maybe. But I still feel like there's other games or other titles that have come out that are much more better suited for Game of the Year.
Okay, what about you, Max?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I was gonna say for this year, probably not compared to what came out this year, but I could see in years where gaming just wasn't as big, with, for example, like games like Overwatch and Uncharted 4 came out this year. I could see this being a high contender in previous years where those kinds of games didn't come out. But as for 2016, I don't like it can be high up there. It's still high up there, but I don't think it would be like a serious contender. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I'm still pretty early on. That could change my mind. I'm usually not too hard on games for the most part. So that could totally change later on. That doesn't mean like personally this is one of my games of the year, but I don't know. I really, really love it, but I see a lot of the anger going around side it, and I see a lot of people's different opinions in the way the game is rubbing with them. And I get it. I kind of get it from their sides of things. So I don't know. It's a tough topic right now. That's tough. That's a tough question. I don't know. I'm more towards no than yes, though.
Okay, yeah. I guess that's also another question we can revisit when we do the spoiler cast or whatever. But,
how about you?
Yeah, I feel like if it wasn't for Overwatch, this might be my game of the year. But Overwatch just kind of took off. It was real unexpected. I didn't even like when I got Overwatch because I got it to review and I hadn't played any of the beta. I hadn't read anything about the game. I literally just heard the name, and it just kind of took me by surprise and just kind of took over all my gaming habits. Period. So definitely it has to be that game for me for game of the year. But I feel like Final Fantasy is my number 2. Because I do rank it above Uncharted. And I mean, maybe I didn't play enough because there's a few games I didn't really play towards the tail end of the year, like Watch Dogs and Battlefield 1 and Titanfall, you know, Mafia 3. There's a few games I didn't actually get to play yet. But yeah, from the games that I did play, it's definitely my number 2.
Cool.
So, yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 3. I don't know where in the top 3 yet, but somewhere in there.
Okay. Dishonored 2 is in yours.
These Game of the Year conversations are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, they are. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's everything that, you know, we wanted to touch on for now for Final Fantasy 15. So thank you guys on Patreon for listening to the show. Thank you for supporting us. And catch us again whenever we do the spoiler show for Final Fantasy. And there's still a lot of JRPG stuff, well, RPG period stuff that we need to discuss. You know, me and JJ and Max can join us for some, I'm sure. We're going to talk Persona. We're going to talk Kingdom Hearts. We're going to talk World of Final Fantasy at some point. So definitely look out for these special turn-based podcasts, people. Thank you for listening. We're signing out. Peace.